And then when I go to fingertips, see how the left shoulder didn't move? Because my elbow is bending. Today I'm going to do a beginner's guide for the one arm handstand. Now obviously there's some prerequisites before we get into this. You need to have a solid two arm handstand. You should be able to go between tucks, straddles and move around in the handstand. So basically be able to jump up. Ooh, should warm up really. So basically be able to go in and out of straddle positions, in and out of tuck. You should be comfortable and you should have repetition. So basically be able to kick up multiple times. So if I kick up once, even if I have to play around a little bit, I can always catch the handstand in and out multiple times. So you want to feel like you can move around on the hands a little bit. Obviously, you can still start playing with these things before that, but I recommend that you keep working on those two arm basics and just change the percentage of your training. So maybe to start with, you're doing like 80–90% of two arm basics still. From a balance point of view, you're doing your presses, you're doing your handstand push-ups, so you're creating some strength and some balance. And then 5 to 10% of that becomes one arm work. Now most people are going to find the straddle handstand the easiest way to start playing with the one arm handstand, so just make sure that your straddle is strong in one segment. So by that I mean that from your straight position you can open to straddle, and this is like acting as one piece. What you don't want is this happening. You don't want the right leg disconnecting from the left leg and doing different things. And you want to have that slight pike position and feel like you've finished the movement. You don't want to be in between. So if I'm in my handstand here, see there's like this in between position, I can go deeper. But if I close or open, if you want to call it open, the straddle as much as I can where it's a comfortable like finish position, then it's one piece. Then I can move her around. If I'm somewhere here, it's like inconsistent and not talking. I want this side to talk to this side, a little bit like aeroplane wings. And then let's look at our hand placement now. So see the distance between my hands. Now ideally when I'm going to do one arm work, I want to have the hands nice and close together because we don't want to be shifting a great amount. So if I'm here and I have to shift over to the one arm, see how I'm having to move sideways much more than I do if I have my hands closer together. So if my hands are here and I'm shifting across to the one arm, I don't have to move very far in that direction. But we do need to be a little bit realistic with that. If I don't have the flexibility to go that close, what we don't want to do is look like this. So I don't want to have elbows bent, because as soon as I try and come across, I'm obviously going to just collapse more in that direction. Okay, so now we have our hand position in terms of the distance between them. We have our straddle position, so we have our straddle handstand. Now what we want to think about is focal position. Where am I looking before I start the two arm work? So I would recommend you look somewhere between your thumb and index finger. So I'm going to look somewhere here when I'm in my two arm handstand, in my straddle there. So that's my base, that's my start position before I go into my one arm work. So now we have that strong base, let's go to step number one. So step number one, we need to be able to change our focal point from, instead of looking here, I'm going to move across and start to look here on the hand. So I'm going to start to look here. So if I'm in this position, I go into my start position. Now I'm just going to change that focal point and I'm just going to look between that thumb and index finger on that first knuckle there. Then I'm going to come back to the center, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Come back to center. Now notice when I'm doing this, I'm not changing anything else. I'm just changing that head position where I'm looking. So I'm building some intent to start to move over to this direction, but I'm not moving any weight in any way. So I'm not shifting weight, I'm just looking at this part of the hand. So once you've got that base, goal number one is from that position, open to your straddle. There's your strong position. I'm going to look across at that hand. I'm going to hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over to the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back to the center. Come to straight. Come back down. So roughly 5 seconds or a 5 count looking at each side. Now instantly when you do that, you're probably going to feel a little bit more comfortable looking on one side to the other, and that's normal. We've got the dominant side that's going to feel way more comfortable than the other side. And in terms of training these things, I recommend that you have a section where you can do sets and reps, so that's a comfortable position. So maybe that's where you're at, just changing that head position, you can hold. But when you try the next level that I'm going to show next, if that's slightly too hard, don't not play with that, but think of that as your play and do your sets and reps at the step backwards. And then slowly you can move the working sets up to the next level, play with what's above that, use that as assessment, and then slowly keep moving up the stages until you reach the one arm. Okay, now the fun bit, let's start adding a little bit of weight transfer with a little bit of side flexion. Now side flexion is a real interesting one. I have basically zero side flexion, so you're not going to see me shift too much towards that flag position. But someone else who has more side flexion, I'd recommend you just go to what feels natural for you. If you're not flexible enough, don't try and force it. And if you're super flexible, don't try and stay too static, because you want to feel like you're reaching your end position, a bit like the straddle. We've reached that strong position and we're not trying to go somewhere in between. So I kick up to my strong base, I open to my straddle, my strong straddle, I look across, make sure I've got that position, and then I'm just going to shift a little bit. So a little bit of side flexion. Now what you should feel now is this right shoulder and head and like pec is all becoming one piece. Then I'm going to come back again, look to the left, shift, have that same feeling. So I'm making contact between the bicep, the shoulder, the head, keeping that focal position, coming back again. Now it won't be a big measurable weight, so if you had your hands on two sets of scales, you wouldn't see the weight decrease that much out of this hand as I come across to this hand, but you are going to start to feel that you're getting ready to put more and more weight into there. It's a bit like if you was holding here and you was holding two dumbbells, and I let go of this dumbbell, and then I want to move across and get underneath this one. This is the connection we want to start to make. So the head, the bicep, the pec, all in, and it's a bit like you're pushing in with this lat as well. So I'm pulling the side in to make this one piece. Exactly the same as if you had a heavy weight here. You'd want to get underneath the weight. You wouldn't want it over there. You'd want to move underneath. So then we have our working sets of that. Again, 5 to 10 second hold. So I go into my strong base position, strong straddle, change the head position, do the slight shift, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, return back to center. If I needed to, I could come down and rest, look over to the other side. Focal point, slight weight shift, keeping all that connected. 2, 3, 4, 5, coming back to center. Notice when I do that, the straddle is staying exactly the same. It's locked into position. This isn't happening. Now realistically, most people are going to be sticking to this type of level for some time, maybe 6 to 12 months until you can get that really comfortable, and then just playing with the next levels. Let's up the ante now and show the next one. So next level is going to get fun. We still want to have that same setup. So I'm in my strong base, strong straddle, look at the hand, shift some weight, and then all I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift more weight. So I'm trying to get more and more weight into that right hand. Now what I'm going to notice now is my left hand is getting very light. And then I'm going to come back, same again on the other side, shift, keep shifting until I feel that this right hand is getting very light. Come back. So the goal with this one is actually to take all of the weight as best you can out of this other hand. So I should feel like this hand has got no weight in it. I'm just using it for balance. And then when we video ourselves, make sure you are videoing so you can check what you're doing here. What we should see is this is closing. So we have the head looking straight down to this. We have this one segment going on between the head, the bicep, the shoulder, the pec, all switched on. And then as I transfer more weight, I'm keeping this tucked in. The temptation is going to be to keep going in this direction. I actually want to go this direction with the torso. So I'm pulling this into my side to make all this one segment. And this is the point where some of you now will be able to go from this position to this position. So through the piano to the fingertip position. Now what we need to make sure that we do here is when we go up onto fingertips, look what happens to my left shoulder when I do that. So if I'm here, see how the left shoulder comes up? So now the left shoulder is higher than the right. So that's why when we go up onto fingertips, we actually want to bend the elbow slightly. So the shoulders don't change. I want the shoulders to stay exactly the same. So when we go back to that position again, I'm going to transfer as much weight as I can, ideally all of the weight. And then when I go to fingertips, see how the left shoulder didn't move? Because my elbow is bending. Same on the other side. Find that position where that right hand is getting very light. Shift up, just bending the elbow. My right shoulder doesn't move. Come back down, show control, come back again. So if we are videoing like I recommend you do, so you can watch the steps back, what you're looking for is the hand, the shoulder, and then the middle of my pelvis, my sacrum, should roughly start to look aligned. And the more aligned you can get, the more stacked they are. The lighter and more stable you're going to feel in that stack, the lighter this is going to feel, and you're not going to feel like you're falling in that direction. Now I will show the next steps, but with the next steps we need to make sure that we have the other steps checked off and they're all happening underneath. So we still want to see those steps happening. So if I go through the full movement now, so I'm going to go into my strong base, open to my strong straddle. I'm going to look across at the hand. I'm going to shift the initial weight. I'm going to shift more weight until that left hand becomes light. I bend the elbow. And now I'm just going to try and work on that from a balance control point of view for hold times, 5 to 10 seconds. Then I'm going to take the thumb away. Then I'm going to take fingers away until I can get this one finger. Then I'm going to come back down with control. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Then come back down with control. So ideally what we should see is no real change between the flagging over and I've got this complete. This hand is very light, and then all I'm doing is taking some fingers away. The thumb is probably one of the hardest ones to take away because you've got that sideways movement or back to front movement. Where I take the thumb away, that's pretty tricky. But the fingers are only balancing me, they're not taking weight. The biggest mistake people will make here is that as they go up, they've got lots of weight in these fingers, so I still haven't shifted all the weight to this hand, and then what they'll do is they'll take fingers away, but they've still got lots of weight in them, so even when I'm on that one finger, it's really pushing into the floor. Well, ideally it should be this, and this, and this. There's no real weight in the hand. Again, this is probably now 18 months, 2 years until you're going to get to the point where you can do this. So I'm actually going to go into a one-arm handstand now, and I really want you to watch what happens to the left shoulder as I load the right shoulder and I lift the arm. Notice how it's going to stay, or ideally stay, in line with the other shoulder. So even when I pick the arm right up, I'm trying to keep that left shoulder in line with the right shoulder. Now you should be able to notice the difference between my dominant side. So you see my right side, things are a little bit cleaner. I don't move the shoulder around too much and this stays all tucked in a little bit better. But on the left hand side, you'll notice that this doesn't keep so good and this shoulder probably doesn't stay down so much. So the big one is just realizing that the thousands and thousands and thousands of repetitions that need to go into creating a one-arm handstand. Everyone's slightly different on their journey. Everyone has different flexibility, not only in straddle, in that side flag, and they have different techniques when they go into it. So don't overly stress about trying to copy other people or following a certain method or so-and-so says you must do this. Find your journey, play with it, enjoy. The biggest thing is consistency. So training rep to rep, set to set, day to day, month to month, year to year, and find your journey towards the one-arm handstand. You could have the best program in the world, but if you don't follow it because it's boring or it just doesn't gel with you, then you're never going to do it. So just find your journey, enjoy it, have fun, and let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. Now, you don't need an electric skateboard, you don't need a bed, and you don't need a hat, but that was my way I found that helped me. Thumbs up and subscribe would be appreciated, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys.